Let's start here with something deceptively simple but deeply powerful words. Not just the kind we throw around casually, but the ones we repeat consciously or unconsciously, because what we say shapes what we see. Our language doesn't just describe our world, it defines the limits of it. You see, in psychology, there's a term called linguistic determinism. It's the idea that the structure of language actually influences the way we think and, by extension, the way we behave. So when we say something, even to ourselves, it's not just noise. It's not just sound. It's a signal to the brain, to the nervous system, and yes, to the world around us. And when we say something 3 times, intentionally, deliberately, that signal gets stronger. It becomes not just an idea, but a belief, not just a thought, but a trigger for action. Repetition is how the brain learns. Neurologically, it's how we encode things into long-term memory, into habit, into identity. You don't become confident by reading about confidence once. You become confident by rehearsing the belief that you are capable, over and over, until your brain stops questioning it and starts living it. This is why rituals exist in every tradition, in every culture. Whether spiritual or secular, they're all built around repetition, a word, a phrase, a gesture, because repetition signals commitment, and commitment opens doors. Let me put it this way: the moment you say something once, it might be an idea. Say it twice, it becomes a consideration. Say it a 3rd time, and it becomes a conviction. That's the psychological rhythm we're working with. And here's where it gets deeper. Philosophically, language is not just descriptive, it's creative. The ancient Stoics understood this well. They taught that our internal dialogue determines the quality of our lives far more than external events do. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. In modern terms, what you say to yourself is what you start to believe about yourself. And what you believe consistently sets the boundaries for what you'll allow, attempt, or even notice. So when I tell you to say something 3 times, I'm not handing you a magic trick. I'm giving you a key to your own internal architecture. You are reprogramming the lens through which you see the world and yourself. That lens is everything. Think about it. How many doors have stayed closed in your life? Not because the opportunity wasn't there, but because you didn't believe you were ready to walk through. Maybe the door wasn't locked. Maybe you just never turned the handle because your internal language told you it wasn't for you. Now, imagine shifting that script. Imagine waking up and saying, with clear intention, I am ready, I am ready, I am ready, not as a chant, not as wishful thinking, but as a conscious act of self-alignment. You're no longer waiting for the right time or the perfect conditions. You're training your mind to see the world differently, and in turn, to act differently. Because once you believe you're ready, you behave like someone who is, and that behavior, the energy, the posture, the decisions, that is what opens doors. Not because the world changes, but because you do. And here's the truth: most of the time, the door is already cracked open. The handle is right there. But only belief gives you the courage to reach for it. Say it 3 times, not because the words themselves are magic, but because you are. And the words, they just help you remember. Let's talk about the phrase itself. I am ready. Just 3 words. Simple on the surface, almost too simple. But when spoken with awareness and intention, they carry immense psychological and philosophical weight. I am ready is not a passive affirmation. It's a declaration of agency. You're not asking for permission. You're not waiting for external validation. You're stating your position in the present moment as someone prepared to step forward, to say yes to face whatever comes next. That's not just motivational talk. That's psychology. Readiness is a mindset, and it's not about feeling 100% certain or having every detail in place. In fact, you'll rarely feel fully prepared for the things that matter most. Starting over, letting go, saying yes to something bigger than you. Readiness, in the psychological sense, is not the absence of fear. It's the presence of willingness. It's the inner posture that says, I may not know everything, but I trust myself enough to begin. The human brain is wired for safety. It favors familiarity over growth, routine over risk. So when you say, I am ready, and repeat it out loud, you are disrupting that internal resistance. You're sending a signal to the nervous system that you are not in danger. You are stepping into something new, yes, but you are not stepping into chaos. You're choosing it. That alone begins to shift your internal chemistry. You breathe differently. You stand differently. And most importantly, you start thinking differently. The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard once wrote, "Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards." What stops most people isn't the unknown. It's the illusion that we need to understand everything before we move. But that's not how growth works. Clarity doesn't come before commitment. It comes after. Saying, I am ready, is what starts the engine. And here's something subtle but essential. By framing the phrase in the present tense, you're anchoring yourself in now. You're not saying, I will be ready, which pushes your power into some vague future. You're not saying, I want to be ready, which still leaves room for doubt. You are saying, I am ready, now, in this moment, as you are, and that is enough. The brain responds differently to present tense affirmations. Neuroscience tells us that when we speak in the now, we reduce cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort that arises when our beliefs don't align with our behavior. If you say, I am ready, and you say it with enough consistency and conviction, your brain begins to close that gap. It starts aligning your emotions and behaviors with that statement. You start becoming the version of yourself who truly is ready, not just in word, but in thought, action, and presence. Now, let me be clear, saying the words alone won't open every door, but they will open something far more important first. You. They will open your focus, your awareness, your courage. They will shift your filter from fear to possibility. And from that shift, the doors that used to seem locked will begin to reveal their hinges. So when I tell you to say it 3 times, I'm not prescribing a formula. I'm offering a moment of stillness, a chance to listen to yourself, to stop waiting, to stop preparing for the perfect version of you to arrive. You are that version, already in progress, already enough to begin. Say it with me now, not out of habit, but from a place of truth. I am ready. I am ready. I am ready. Because you don't have to feel ready to be ready. And once you realize that, the door you've been staring at, it starts to open from the inside. Let's take it deeper. Because before any real door opens in your life, before the opportunity, the breakthrough, the shift, something else has to open first. And that something is internal. This is where most people get stuck. They're waiting for a moment out there to change something in here. Waiting for the right job to feel confident. Waiting for the perfect partner to feel worthy. Waiting for the external world to give them a sign, a guarantee, a green light. But the reality is, and psychology confirms this, external change doesn't precede internal transformation, it follows it. The door out there opens when the one inside you does first. It's not just theory, it's how the brain works. The prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for planning, risk assessment, decision making, relies heavily on your internal belief system. If you don't believe you're capable or deserving or prepared, that part of your mind will filter out any evidence that says otherwise. In simple terms, it won't let you see the door even if it's right in front of you. That's not because you're unworthy, it's because your inner world hasn't made room for the possibility yet. Think about that. If you haven't made space inside for the next level of your life, you won't recognize it when it appears. You'll walk right past it, or worse, self-sabotage your way out of it. This is why I say doors open internally first. You have to become the kind of person who believes, at the level of identity, that you are ready for more. Not just because you've said the words, but because you've internalized them. You've integrated them into how you carry yourself, how you speak, how you respond when life tests you. And it will test you. You can be sure of that. Every new level of growth demands something of you. Not in a punishing way, but in a refining way. Philosophers like Carl Jung and Viktor Frankl both explored this idea that human beings aren't just searching for pleasure or comfort. We're wired to search for meaning, and meaning doesn't come through ease. It comes through friction, through decision, through facing the door, not knowing exactly what's behind it, and opening it anyway. When you say, "I am ready," and you mean it, you're not just setting a goal. You're shifting your internal framework. You're choosing to live from your highest orientation. Not your fear, not your doubt, but your capacity. And when that shift happens, even slightly, the world starts to look different. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Your internal filters start tuning into opportunities. Your posture invites different kinds of conversations. Your energy attracts aligned situations. You're no longer waiting, you're moving. And motion creates momentum. This is what people mean when they say someone is on fire or in flow. It's not luck, it's alignment. Internal congruence between belief, identity, and action. The inner door is open, so the outer ones begin to swing wide as well. But the order matters. You can't reverse it. You can't force external outcomes without doing the inner work first. Because anything you gain without expanding your internal world will eventually feel misaligned. Or worse, it'll collapse under the weight of your own unpreparedness. So the real work is not to chase doors. It's to become the person who is ready for them. The external door. The opportunity, the offer, the moment you've been waiting for. It's already on its way. But here's the question you have to ask yourself. Will I be ready when it shows up? And more importantly, can I open the door within me before I expect the one out there to open for me? Because once you open that door, the rest, they start to open themselves. Let's talk about energy. Not in a vague, mystical sense, but in a very real, observable way. The kind of energy you carry into a room, into a conversation, into a moment. It matters, and it speaks before you do. Every one of us is communicating long before we open our mouths. And what we communicate most clearly, most consistently, is our state of being, our readiness, our presence, our belief in ourselves. Now, you've already said, "I am ready." You've opened the door inside you. But what happens next? What happens when that inner alignment begins to show up in how you carry yourself? The answer is simple: access. People begin to respond. Situations begin to shift. Not because you manipulated anything, but because energy attracts access. Let me put it this way. The world isn't just listening to what you say, it's listening to how you say it. It's listening to the conviction in your tone, the steadiness in your body, the clarity in your eyes. People can feel when you've done the inner work. They can feel when your confidence is real, Not the kind that's loud or performative, but the kind that's quiet and rooted. The kind that doesn't need to prove anything, because it knows exactly what it is. There's an idea in psychology called emotional contagion. It refers to how people can pick up on and catch emotions from others, often unconsciously. When you walk into a space carrying certainty, carrying peace, carrying purpose, you affect the emotional climate of that space. You influence how others feel around you. And that influence, it builds trust, it builds resonance, and trust and resonance, they open doors, not just metaphorically. Literally, mentors say yes. Collaborators take you seriously. Clients lean in. Opportunities that felt previously out of reach start to feel natural. Not because the landscape changed, but because your internal energy began broadcasting a new frequency. And this isn't just charisma. This is alignment. When your words, your posture, your energy, and your intention are all moving in the same direction, there's no resistance. And when there's no resistance, people feel it. Doors open in the presence of alignment because alignment is rare. And in a world that is constantly scattered, distracted, and overstimulated, your clarity becomes a magnet. But there's a deeper philosophical point here too. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. If you want doors of leadership to open, you must embody leadership before the title arrives. If you want love, you must become love in the way you speak, the way you show up, the way you listen. You don't wait for the door to swing open so you can become the person you admire. You become that person now. That's the doorway. And what's powerful is that energy is self-reinforcing. The more aligned your energy is with your words, the more positive outcomes you experience. The more doors open, the more confident you become. And the more confident you become, the more aligned energy you project. It becomes a cycle, a very different kind of loop than the fear-based one most people live in. Here's the key though, you can't fake it. Not sustainably. Energy doesn't lie. You can say all the right things, wear the right clothes, post the right pictures. But if your internal state is filled with doubt, people will feel it. That's not judgment. That's just human intuition. We know when someone is centered, and we know when they're not. So don't rush to speak louder, speak clearer. Don't focus on looking the part. Focus on being the part. Do the internal work. Say the words with integrity. Align your posture with your purpose. That's how energy becomes influence. That's how presence becomes power. Because in the end, the most open doors are not the ones you knock on loudly. They're the ones that swing wide because you showed up aligned. There's a moment after you've said the words, I am ready. And after you've aligned your energy, where something unexpected can happen, you pause, you reflect, and suddenly, doubt creeps in. A question bubbles to the surface. Am I really? That's not a failure of the process. That's part of it. This is where the practice shifts from language to integration. Repeating the phrase 3 times isn't a performance. It's a ritual. And like any meaningful ritual, its purpose is not to entertain the mind, but to reveal it. Saying it 3 times creates space, not just to speak, but to listen, to hear what rises in the silence that follows. It's important we don't rush past that silence. That's where the truth lies. Because as soon as you begin declaring readiness, all the parts of you that aren't fully aligned will make themselves known. Old doubts, lingering fears, outdated beliefs, they surface. Not to stop you, but to give you an invitation. Do you want to carry this forward? Or is it time to let this go? This is the reflection phase, and it's vital. Too often, we treat personal growth like a checklist. Say the right things, visualize the right outcomes, take the right steps. But real change isn't mechanical, it's relational. It's a relationship with yourself, one that requires attention, not just intention. Psychologically, this is called metacognition, your ability to think about your own thinking. It's the inner dialogue that asks not just, what do I want? But why do I want it? Am I prepared for the cost of it? What version of me is going to carry this forward? That level of self-inquiry isn't a detour from action. It's the foundation of meaningful action. Because without reflection, repetition becomes noise. You can say, I am ready, 100 times, but if you're not honest with yourself, you're not building belief. You're building resistance. The goal is alignment, not avoidance. And alignment requires awareness. But here's the beauty of it: once you reflect, once you name what's real, the next step becomes clear. You respond, not react, respond. That word carries weight. Reaction is unconscious, automatic, often based on old programming. But response is conscious. It's rooted in clarity, and clarity gives your words direction. So maybe the response is a small action, a phone call, a boundary, a brave yes. Or maybe it's a no that makes space for the right yes. Whatever it is, it must come after reflection. Because now, the words you say aren't floating above your life. They're grounded in it. This is the cycle: repeat, reflect, respond. Repeat the phrase with intention. Reflect on what it activates in you. Respond in a way that honors both the declaration and the truth it revealed. That's how belief becomes behavior. That's how mindset becomes movement. Philosophers have always known this. The Stoics, for example, didn't just preach virtue. They practiced daily reflection. They believed that only through daily self-examination could a person live in alignment with their highest self. Not by striving for perfection, but by committing to awareness, to intentional thought, followed by intentional action. So don't treat the phrase like a spell. Treat it like a doorway. And each time you say it, step a little further in. Don't be afraid to sit with what it brings up. Because if you're willing to reflect, then you will always know how to respond. And that's where power lies, not in pretending you're fearless, but in showing up fully aware, fully awake, and still choosing to act. Because readiness isn't proven by how loudly you declare it. It's proven by how clearly you respond to the truth that declaration reveals. So here we are, the final moment. You've said the words. You've repeated them. You've aligned your energy. You've done the reflection. You've responded in small, meaningful ways. But none of that replaces what has to happen next. You have to walk through the door. This is where most people hesitate, not because they're unprepared, but because they're conditioned to believe that certainty is a prerequisite for movement. We think we need more time, more clarity, more validation, but those are illusions. Certainty is often a luxury of hindsight. In the present, what you really need is courage, and not the loud kind, the quiet kind, the kind that whispers, go anyway. There's a psychological concept known as the intention-behavior gap. It refers to the space between what we say we're ready to do and what we actually do. Most people live stuck in that gap. They've convinced themselves that preparation is progress, that thinking about change is the same as creating it. But no amount of preparation can replace the moment when you simply have to step through, into the unknown, into the next level, into who you said you were becoming. Walking through the door is symbolic, but it's also literal. It means picking up the phone when fear says don't. It means applying when you feel underqualified. It means leaving when comfort tells you to stay. It means starting before you feel ready. Because if we've learned anything, it's that feeling ready and being ready are not the same. Philosophically, this is the threshold moment. Joseph Campbell called it the call to adventure. It's the point in every transformation story where the hero must cross from the known world into the unknown. And the only way forward is through action. There's no shortcut, no bypass, only decision, only movement. And yet, this isn't about grand, dramatic gestures. Sometimes the door doesn't look like a big opportunity. Sometimes it looks like a hard conversation, like choosing discipline over distraction, like letting go of what no longer fits. The door isn't always glamorous, but it's always significant. And when you walk through it with intention, you become someone new on the other side. This is why repetition matters, why readiness matters, why alignment and reflection matter. Because when the moment arrives, when the door actually appears, you won't have time to prepare. You'll only have time to choose. And if you've done the work before the moment, the choice becomes clear. But you still have to make it. And here's the paradox. Walking through the door won't eliminate your fear. It will elevate it. It will expose the parts of you that were still holding on. But it will also refine you. It will prove in real time that the version of you who said, "I am ready," was telling the truth. And that proof, that lived experience, will become your new baseline, your new evidence, your new identity. Because readiness is not about confidence. It's about crossing. It's not about knowing exactly what's next. It's about trusting that you'll meet what's next with everything you've become. So when the door appears, and it will, don't wait for the perfect conditions. Don't wait to be chosen. Don't wait until you're fearless. Open the door. Step through it. And trust that the person who emerges on the other side will be exactly who you were always meant to be, because saying it 3 times opens the door. But walking through it, that's what changes everything.